Well, hello, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us tonight for this forum featuring the Democratic candidates for Assembly District 80. I'm Chris Murphy, Audience Director for the Cap Times. And in just a moment, I'll be turning this over to our moderator, Andrew Bahl. I want to take a moment to thank all of you who are watching live or perhaps watching a recording of this later. If you're looking for further information about this race or others in Wisconsin between now and the elections, be sure to visit captimes.com and click on the Elections 2024 logo. Another great way to keep up with what's happening politically in Wisconsin is to subscribe to our free politics newsletter, Wedge Issues, which Andrew and his colleague Aaron McGroarty write each Friday. It's got short recaps of all our coverage of the past week, plus links to lots of other great coverage elsewhere. Just visit captimes.com/newsletters to sign up. But we've got a lot to cover with the candidates tonight, so without further delay, I'm going to turn the forum over to Andrew, who covers state government for us here at the Cap Times. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks, Chris. And welcome to the Cap Times Candidate Forum for the 80th Assembly District. As Chris said, I'm Andrew Bahl, State Government Reporter for the Cap Times, and I will be your moderator tonight. And this is the second of 6 forums that the Cap Times will be hosting for each of the contested primary races in Dane County for seats in the State Assembly and State Senate. Many of these districts changed under new legislative maps that were enacted earlier this year, and we want readers and viewers to have all the information that they need before heading to the polls. We are live, obviously, right now on Zoom, but we will be posting a recording on our website tomorrow. So if you wind up having to miss part of this forum, or there's a part you want to rewatch or share with a friend, you'll be able to do so. We are joined tonight by the 2 candidates in the Democratic primary in the 80th Assembly District, Representative Mike Bare and Madison Alder Nasra Wehelie. The 80th District includes parts of West Madison and all of Verona, Cross Plains, and the town of Middleton. Voters will head to the polls for the primary on August 13th, and as Chris said, you can get a lot more information on everything you need to know for voting at captimes.com. And the winner of this primary race will face Republican Robert Relf in the November general election. Now, before we get started, really quickly, just a brief primer on how the rules will work tonight. Each of our candidates will get 2 minutes for their opening and closing statements. And in between, I'll be asking them a variety of questions about issues important to our readers. Most of these questions, in fact, came from things that we heard when we sat down with folks during listening sessions and conducted an online survey earlier this year, which part of our ongoing efforts to have our 2024 coverage be more reader-centered. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. But that's enough for me talking for now. We flipped a coin before the beginning of the forum to decide who would go first, and we decided that Representative Bare will start. Representative Bare, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement, starting now.
Great. Well, thank you, Andrew and Chris and the Cap Times for hosting this debate. You are an indispensable community asset, and I'm grateful for what you all do. And good to see you, Alder Werlein. And hi, everyone. I'm State Representative Mike Bare. I'm running for re-election to the State Assembly in District 80. I'm a dad, a community advocate, a small business owner of the beer garden at Elver Park, and I'm a full-time state representative. The first 6 years of my career, I worked for Senator Russ Feingold, and then I spent 12 years as a community advocate at the Community Advocates Public Policy Institute, working on trying to solve poverty and all of its causes and results. And I also previously served on the Verona City Council, got elected twice to the Dane County Board, and elected 2 years ago to the State Assembly. Real proud in this election, this race, to have the endorsements of Governor Evers, former Governor Doyle, Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez, former Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, the leadership in the State Senate and the State Assembly, Senator Hesselbein and Representative Neubauer, our caucus chair, Lisa Subeck, and many more of my colleagues in the State Senate and State Assembly. I'm grateful for their support, along with over 100 local officials from the county and local level, and also endorsed by Planned Parenthood and a number of our labor unions, including AFSCME and AFT, WEAC, SEIU. And so people who work with me know that they can trust me. They know that I do the work, that I work hard, and I'm running on 3 issues. The first one being protecting our democracy. The second one, we have to restore our rights that have been lost. And the third, have to make investments in our community. and voters know they can count on me. I've been out talking to them all spring and summer, listening to them, and my goal is to take their stories, their burdens, and their struggles with me to the state capitol and represent them the best that I can. And we've got an exciting year with new competitive legislative maps, and I'm excited to get out and work on those as well to make some progress for people who are desperately looking for it.
It's perfectly timed, and now we will go over to Alder Wehelie for your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew and Chris and Cap Times. It's really honored to be here tonight, and Representative Bare for being here, and also for the viewers who have taken the time to watch this forum. My name is Nasra Wehelie. I'm a proud mom of 4 children, originally from Somalia and Wisconsinite for 3 decades. I serve as an alder for the Madison Common Council, far southwest side of Madison. I am this race for many reasons, and one reason is when we had the map, the redrawn, District 80 has significantly changed and now has more than 30,000 new residents who have never voted in District 80. My second reason is equity and representation. Wisconsin is one of the worst states for Black residents and also for women. At the state capital, only 30% of women are serving in the state capital. That's unacceptable. I'm running into this race only with the experience of as elected official and having sponsored over 300 legislation. I'm also bringing a proven commitment to our community to address systemic inequities and will advocate for policies that promote equity and justice for all. I am particularly focused on 3 key issues: attainable housing, women empowerment, economic development. I'll advocate for equitable housing development. I'll support policies that enhance reproductive rights, healthcare access. And finally, I'll promote business growth, job creation, and access to capital with targeted support for minority and women-owned business. And I look forward to the questions in this forum. Thank you.
Well, we will dive right in, and you both kind of touched on this a little bit in your opening statements, but I want to drill down a bit further. And we'll start with you, Alder Wehelie. You both are currently in elected office in either in the state assembly currently or on the Madison Common Council. What is one thing that you have done in the last couple of years that you think has had a tangible impact on the community and is a sign that you're well positioned to the job of state representative for the 80th Assembly District?
Thank you, Andrew, for the questions. When I joined the Common Council as an appointment, usually what I do is do assessment. And what I have done is District 7 has many parks and none of the parks had bathroom. So what I had the privilege of doing is assessing and talking to the constituents and asking what are the key issues in District 7. Country Grove Park is one of the most youth recreational park, and it didn't have any bathroom. So the youth had to go to the neighbor's house for bathroom or portable bathroom. So what I did was I did budget amendment and put $1.86 million to build that park. And we were able to pass the budget amendment, and this park will be available or to the residents of District 7 effective the end of this year. The other piece that I'm really proud of is looking into the equity lens, and when we see some of the inequities in some of the policies that we make, we always ask for what is the unintended consequence. So I have done mainly some policies that really affects the communities, whether it's economic development, whether it's criminal justice reform, or whether it's public safety. So I'm very proud to have some policies that I will discuss later on, but mainly those are some of the things taken from Madison policies, but also at the state level. And I also served on committees that are more throughout the Dane County.
And Representative Bare, that same question to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a sort of interesting wake-up call moving from the Verona City Council to the county board, now to the assembly, where things are significantly more difficult to get done than they were on the county board. It's a place certainly for progress. But despite the challenges, I've gotten quite a bit done, and proud of the record, proud of my accomplishments. I think the thing I'm most proud of was being involved in passage of a package of bills that invested $500 million in workforce housing. And that was done in a bipartisan way, went through the housing committee that I serve on. And I introduced a couple of amendments that got passed and were included in the final version. And so I'm very proud of having been involved in that. And it's in the theme of what I've spent most of my time in the assembly working on, which is trying to help working families. And I've introduced bills to expand the earned income tax credit, to expand the homestead credit that helps people afford to stay in their homes, pay their mortgage or pay their rent, and to create a program that's a state facilitated retirement savings program for people whose employers don't offer it. So there's a lot more I think we can do on this particular topic. And this kind of targeted tax relief incentivizes work, makes work pay, makes work available. It helps families plan for the future. And we've got a state budget surplus that we can be using right now to fund these priorities and put people back to work and put money in their pocket right now.
Our next question, we're going to start with Representative Baer, and this was maybe the thing that we heard most from readers when we were talking to them. Should the legislature set any limits on abortion access beyond the restrictions currently in state law?
Well, abortion gets my full and unconditional support. Abortion is healthcare. I'm a member of an organization called Men for Choice, which is a national organization started by a friend of mine, because this isn't just a woman's issue. This is an issue for everyone, and it shouldn't just be on women to fight alone for their basic rights. It's something we all have to be involved in. I'm the only one here endorsed by Planned Parenthood. I've worked alongside them for years, for 2 decades, in fact, longer than most of them, I think, have worked there themselves. And I've also worked with Senator Hesselbein and Senator Royce and Representative Subek, who are fearless leaders on reproductive freedom, and they trust me on this issue, and they're all endorsing me in this race too. So we should immediately get rid of the 1849 abortion ban, and ideally, Congress would pass Tammy Baldwin's bill that would codify Roe into federal law. And here in the state, we could add a right to privacy to our state constitution. Other states that are red states have done that or have had it on their constitution for a long time. And doing that would, help guarantee a right to privacy that includes abortion and contraception and marriage. And it would insulate us from the plans already hatched, already well on their way by Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas and their allies. And so voters know that I'll keep fighting for abortion access to make sure it's legal, available. And women in the district know that they have an ally in me listening to them and fighting for them every day.
And Alder Wehelie, same question to you.
Thank you, Andrew. As a women legislator, I'm deeply committed to advancing policies that empower women. I believe in women should have the authority and the power to choose what they need to do, not the government. And I think, the reproductive right is health, and it's very important. I am, as a common council, we haven't had that straight policy that really, affects women. But however, we have done many, many things to empower women and to help them in healthcare and access to abortion or pre-screening and all that. So I think the difference between the race in District 80 is it's a new district, and unfortunately it's treated as an incumbent, where most of our Democratic establishment are endorsing Representative Baer, which is unequitable, because when we have the new district, it's completely new district and it's not treated as a new district. But for me as a woman, I'm very passionate about fighting for the women's right and helping them to choose what they need to do for their reproductive rights. So I'll looking forward to working with other organizations. I had interview with Planned Parenthood, and I'm looking forward to hearing from them as well for the endorsement. Thank you.
I sat down with both of you all well, over the phone, insofar as one can sit down on a phone call. But we talked a bit about a few issues, and I'm going to bring back one of the questions that I asked you all in that process, because I do think it's important, and we're going to start with Alder Wehelie. What do you see as the biggest economic issue facing Dane County, and what do you think the legislature should do about it?
Thank you, Andrew. I think the most economic challenge in Wisconsin is housing. And housing is fundamental rights for people to have access to able to afford whether they have home ownership or apartments. When we use almost 40% of our income in apartment rental or home mortgage, then it's very detrimental to our growth. When I walked indoors, in many doors, some of the challenges is people are not able to afford housing. People are not able to, like young generation, they cannot be able to even afford buying a home or even apartment. So I think we have, in Madison, what we have done is developed comprehensive strategies to address homelessness, including creation of a supportive housing, emergency shelter, and also afford safe and stable housing for those who are not able to afford. We launched programs that provide legal assistance, resources, and tenant-facing eviction. So in other words, it's like when we are really taking care of our residents and they can afford to live in their homes, then that is very successful in terms of so that they can be able to have more job creation and more able to stay where they are. Thank you.
Representative Bare, I'll toss that same question over to you.
Yeah, well, number one issue facing our economy locally is the rapid growth, and that creates a imbalance in the supply and demand. Demand is up for just about everything. Growth requires investments in communities for them to be successful, and keeping up with those demands is difficult at the local level. So, first of all, we have to have strong K-12 schools and higher education, and our schools are the bedrock of our communities. They're the reason why people move to Middleton, move to Verona, move to Cross Plains, move to West Madison. And there's other investments we have to make too, and those include workforce housing, transit options. Childcare is a constant struggle for families. Medicaid expansion. We have to protect our environment while growing quickly. We have to make sure we're doing it sustainably. And yes, we have to invest in housing. There's no question. I'm the lead author of the bill to increase the homestead credit, which helps people afford their mortgage and their rent. I created the county's program to do eviction assistance and provide legal counsel to people facing eviction. And we certainly do need more starter housing and workforce housing. That was partly the $500 million investment I talked about already. And we ought to also reestablish our regional transit authority. That's a bill that I've been drafting and I'll roll out next session. State and local investments in housing and transit create and sustain jobs. And that's something we have to be mindful of. We're at a growth here unmatched across the state, and it's been a major focus of my time in the Assembly, and it will continue to be.
Representative, this next question, we're going to start with you. And Wisconsin has not raised the minimum wage since 2009. It still sits at $7.25 for hourly workers. Should the state legislature vote to do so? And if so, what would you say is the right dollar amount to set that at in 2024?
Well, this is a great question, Andrew. The current minimum wage at $7.25 is a joke, and I think we should all be ashamed of that. Think of the message that sends. It's just absolute joke to workers in Wisconsin. If my business were paying $7.25 an hour, I'd be deeply ashamed, and I think my business would probably fail. Wisconsin workers are worth way more than that. And at my business, every employee starts significantly above minimum wage, and most of them get tips on top of that. And there's a movement to remove the tipped minimum wage, which is something I think certainly merits a further close look. And Republicans early in the Walker years took away the power for local governments to set a local minimum wage, which, to the point, final part of your question, if we're not allowing that to happen at the local wage, we're depressing wages locally where cost of living is higher in place. That's the situation we're at here in Dane County. My disability advocates friends would be upset if I didn't mention also eliminating the sub-minimum wage, which is the wage paid to people with disabilities who work in sheltered workshops. That one really gets me mad and something we have to take a look at. But if we really, step back and look at the macro, we've gone through a transformational shock to the labor market because of COVID and then a period of inflation, and with spending keeping pace, but wages not keeping up. We also have to take a close look at corporate profits and what businesses are making and realize that workers ought to be getting their fair share too. So our minimum wage needs to go up, and we should also use the tax code to make sure that nobody's living in poverty who are working full time.
Alder, that same question on the minimum wage to you.
Thank you. I think I agree with Representative Bare, and 7.25 is just a joke. And we have to be able to be flexible and move along with our economy. 7.25 is long time. And even if you look at that income, it's not even attainable. And I think the minimum wage, even for other industry like Quick Trips, they are paying $18 an hour. So I think we have to be competitive for our, working families, so that they can be able to take care of their families and have a livable wage. Some other area is increasing the tip minimum, and they shouldn't be any detrimental to our working families to choose between what they can afford and what they cannot afford. And the economy is growing, the population is growing, and we have to be competitive in terms of how we can be able to provide those. Some incentives we can create is collaboration among local government, businesses, and community organizations to align efforts in leveraging resources effectively, so that we can be able to do workforce training so that people are able to live in a livable wages. Thank you.
For our next question, we're going to start with Alder Wehelie. In 2023, Republicans in the legislature proposed a bill that would restrict camping on public land and restrict how local governments handle homelessness. Even broader than that bill, homelessness is an issue that has impacted all of Dane County. It's impacted the 80th Assembly District. Is homelessness an issue that should be handled at a fundamentally local level, or is there a role for the state to play as well? And if so, what should that look like?
I think homelessness first still comes to affordable housing. And in order to reduce homelessness, like I said earlier, we have to reduce the inclusionary, zoning and rent control, and also protecting the tenants. The reason why we have homelessness is because we are not protecting our tenants. Secondly, it's not affordable. So when we look at the homelessness, we look into we stigmatize our homeless population, and they have a very holistic approach that we can be able to attain to. For example, if they have mental health, if they have substance use, we have to reach out to all those homelessness and be able to cater ways that we can be able to provide more affordable shelter, that they can be able to be safe, so that they cannot be able to go into camp in public camps. So I think, what we have done, like earlier said, like we approved so many programs for the day shelter in Tyre Road. We are also creating small townhomes in Stoughton Road. So I think we can do that by being more creative and more proactive in terms of setting some priorities to cater to this population, instead of just stigmatizing them and leaving them to the camps.
Representative Bare, that same question over to you.
Well, I'm first of all flattered. My opponent just said one of the solutions for housing is a bill I authored, Assembly Bill 877. Check it out. That allows local governments to do inclusionary zoning and rent control, which they're preempted from doing today. It's a bill I authored. It's out there. It hasn't gotten a hearing. I'm hopeful that it can. This is something that drives up housing costs and prevents local governments from ensuring that there's affordable housing being built. And thank you, Andrew, for asking about the the bill that Republicans put out to criminalize homelessness. I mean, talk about idiotic policy. It didn't just criminalize homelessness; it also defunded all of the state's homeless services. And I was a leader speaking against this bill in the Housing Committee, and then again on the Assembly floor. I took on the out-of-state expert that Republicans brought in to try to justify this idiocy, and he didn't like me very much by the end of the committee hearing, which is part of the job to show these things to be what they are, which is an attempt to set people up for failure. When the bill got to the Assembly floor, I tried to amend it to fix it, to put in the things that the Republicans had taken out of the governor's budget that were related to homeless services, and they wouldn't even give that amendment an up or down vote. So that bill is morally unconscionable. Of course, we can be part of the solution for people. Homelessness is a choice that we simply don't have to keep making, and I'll be part of trying to make a different choice.
Representative Bare, we're going to start with you for this next question. The Wisconsin legislature has not legalized marijuana in any form in the state. Should Wisconsin legalize medical cannabis and/or recreational cannabis? And what should legislators be prioritizing when considering and debating this issue?
Yeah, we should legalize marijuana for medical and recreational use promptly. There's no reason that we shouldn't have already. Prohibition is not prevention. It didn't work for alcohol. It hasn't worked for marijuana. It's not going to work in the future. That prohibition has led to vast justice disparities. We're missing out on a piece of our economy. We're pushing that economy into dark, unregulated, dangerous places. And not having medical marijuana is simply, in my mind, barbaric and dangerous for patients. It's something that's been proven and done legally and in a way that's helpful. When Wisconsinites travel across the border to our neighbors in Michigan and Minnesota and Illinois to purchase marijuana, we're losing out on that tax revenue, and those dollars are being used to build schools in Detroit and Chicago and Minneapolis, and I'd much prefer to have that money used here. The interest groups who are in the way of this are the Tavern League and the sheriffs and police chiefs, and they're simply wrong. And I've told them that to their faces in my office, and I'll keep telling them that they're wrong. I've had Republicans, who admit that behind the scenes there's more than 50 votes in the Assembly to legalize marijuana, and I think there's going to be even more after this election with fair maps. And so I'm confident we'll see some kind of progress on legalization. And follow the responsible examples that some of our neighboring states have done and use the dollars to invest in youth prevention and their schools and a number of other things. We can and we should legalize, and I'll be part of making that happen.
Alder, that same question over to you.
Thank you. I will agree that I will legalize, authorize legalizing of medical and recreational marijuana. And for two reasons. One is the tax revenue that will bring into the state instead of people going into Illinois to get that. But the more profoundly is, for me, is reducing the criminal penalties. The possession of a small amounts of marijuana for personal use, replacing criminal penalties, is civil fines for our community service. This reduces burden on criminal justice system and prevents individuals from having criminal record for minor offenses. We've seen a lot of time, Black and brown people are charged with possessing just a small ounce of marijuana. Implementing also a process to expunge past marijuana-related conviction, helping individuals who have been disproportionately affected by the drug law is very important. So I think mostly, in addition to revenue, but also criminalization of the Black and brown people is very critical in terms of allowing this medical or recreational marijuana and protecting our Black and brown communities in Wisconsin.
Alder, we're going to start with you for this next question. And we've been talking a lot about the new districts tonight. That's something that's been on the minds of a lot of people across the state. Should the Wisconsin legislature implement some sort of nonpartisan entity or agency to draw district lines for the United States Congress, the state legislature, or both?
I think the mainly the way we see is to have a fair nonpartisan committee to have the redistricting. And I think the most, excuse me, Andrew, can you repeat the question? I think I sensed
Yeah,
the question.
absolutely. So should the legislature implement a nonpartisan agency or commission to draw district lines for Congress, for the state legislature, or for both of those?
Yes. So thank you for clarifying that, because I thought it was more redistricting, but more so in 2021, I was part of the redistricting committee. And I think ensuring a fair representation through transparent and impartial redistricting process is very crucial to the integrity of our democracy. And the reason why I say that the current system of legislation redistricting in Wisconsin has criticized for the Republican has really used gerrymandering, and that's why I'm very proud of our Democratic Party for having these fair maps, so that we can be able to have more fair in the process. So again, creating an independent redistricting commission composed of non-partisan members is very important. Ensuring districts have enough equal population to comply with the principle of one vote and one person, and consider keeping communities of interest, such as those shared economic, social, or cultural interest within the same district for their representation. And that's exactly what we did in 2021 when we did the redistricting in Madison Common Council, is looking into the broader way. But I think the main problem is we don't have access to, my question's up, sorry.
Representative Baer, that same question on nonpartisan redistricting commissions to you.
Well, this discussion and passage of new maps was the most consequential thing I was a part of in these last 2 years, and fixing it for good, I think, is the most consequential thing we can maybe do for the future of our state. We set, I think, a bit of a dangerous precedent by drawing new maps between census cycles, and it's still the case that whoever's in charge draws the maps, and so whoever's in charge could also repeal and replace state statutes that would govern this. So we're in danger of being gerrymandered again, and that means we need to amend our state constitution to permanently prevent gerrymandering from occurring. Other states have done it successfully. When I was on the county board, I was part of drawing the board wasn't involved in drawing. The board's only role was to say yes or no to the recommendations from the nonpartisan commission that had a set of criteria that the board had passed many years before, that included things like following the Federal Voting Rights Act and keeping communities of interest together, ignoring the party or partisan leanings of the incumbent and the address of the incumbent. The board's only role was saying yes or no, and guess what? It worked. So, I think it worked magnificently. We know what to do. We know how to do this. We know how to get results that are fair and democratic. And voters have been sending a very clear message to us by re-electing Governor Evers, electing Justice Janet by 12%, that they do not want us to be gerrymandered, and we need to do what we can to prevent that from happening again.
Representative Baer, sticking on the elections theme, should the legislature make any changes to the Wisconsin Elections Commission, or is the system as currently constructed adequately serving local clerks and voters in the state?
I think at the moment, I haven't seen anything that would justify a change to that system. A couple of the decisions I happen to disagree with, but there's been plenty that I also do agree with. Protecting our democracy is the singular issue of our time, and that's unfortunately thanks to, or no thanks to, Donald Trump and his Republican allies, who've been incredibly successful at eroding people's confidence in our democracy and in our institutions. The idea of President Trump with immunity is demonstrably contrary to what the founders intended. So, and so is the idea that votes wouldn't be counted, or people counting them should fear for their lives. And think the threats that the administrator of the Elections Commission has been, Ethics Commission, both those folks have dealt with is unconscionable and something that they shouldn't have to go through. I have confidence and faith in Wisconsin voters that they'll send a message and continue to send a message that they want our democracy to be protected. And the best thing we can do, I think, is to vote out the people who are the election deniers and those who perpetuated the big lie. Vote out those like Robin Voss, who paid Mike Gableman to dig into conspiratorial nonsense and unfounded theories about what happened in the election. We need to get these people out, and I have faith that voters will do that. We talked about fixing gerrymandering already. I think that's a key item, as is rolling back some of our voter ID law, and we should keep ballot drop boxes in place. We should do everything we can to make sure our democracy is strong.
And Alder Wehelie, I'm going to kick that same question over to you on whether or not we should keep the current Wisconsin Elections Commission structure in place. I believe you are still on mute.
Sorry. Yes, I think protecting our democracy is very important. And as a Black woman and a woman, the path has been paved for us, for me particularly. And seeing, like Representative Bare said, the Republican Trump are really creating such a very unrealistic or ambiguous thing that put the voters' mind that there's some kind of irregularities, and that's not the case. In Common Council, we have introduced and passed many ordinances to protect the polls workers. And voting right involves ensuring fair and accessible elections and enhancing civic education, but not only, but also engagement. So when we look at it, as a Democratic Party, I see two approaches. One approach is the external, where we need to engage in the community and also protect our democracy. But also within our Democratic Party, we have to be able to be open and have a fair representation and inviting other people of color or women to be part of the Democratic Party, which I see a little bit challenging at this time.
Alder, we are going to stay with you to start off for this next question, shifting gears a bit. Should the state legislature enact a red flag law or a law that allows law enforcement officers to seek a judicial order for a person who's deemed to be at risk to themselves or to others, to get a court order for that person to surrender their firearms? Is that a good idea?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. I think as a mom of 4 children, I think everyone's mind thinks about the safety of their children or the safety of themselves. And enacting a red flag law in Wisconsin could significantly step forward in preventing gun violence and improving public safety. I'm honored to have the distinction of the Mom Against Violence to have support me, but by providing legal mechanism to temporarily remove firearms from individual who has risk on them or have risk to others should not have the ability to own or have firearms. It's important and crucial to ensure that these laws include strong due process and protection safeguard against abuse of maintaining public trust and support. So when we look at someone who is in danger to himself, they should not have the ability to have guns, and we should be limited as much as we can to own guns in their hands, because they are very dangerous to themselves, but also they'll be dangerous to the society and the community. And our aim is to make our community safe.
Representative Bare, that same question on red flag laws to you.
Yes, we should have a red flag law. I co-sponsored a bill to bring back our waiting period. That was something we used to have. Republicans took it away in 2015. There's no reason we shouldn't have this. It's common sense gun control and would have broad support. There's, in fact, even in the last couple of weeks, a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling in the Rahimi case that upheld a Texas law that had prevented this guy Rahimi, who was a convicted drug dealer with a history of domestic violence, from owning a firearm. If Texas can do it, we can too, and we should. And we should do far more to keep our communities safe from gun violence. What we learned, I think, from the last few years is that parents don't want to go through this anymore. People don't want to have fear of assembling in public places. They don't want to have to live in this fear. Gun violence is an epidemic. It's a choice. It's the leading cause of death for people under 18. Think about that for a second. That's a choice we're making. And I think we need to stop making that choice. At the school drop-off, I shouldn't have to give my boys 2 hugs, one for today and one for the what if. No parent should have to live in that fear. I hate that I have to do that. I'm a Moms Demand Action Gun Sense candidate and monthly donor to them. And this is just simply an issue we can't sit around anymore and wait for progress to happen. It's something we have to make progress happen on, and I'll be part of doing that. Continue to support those bills and proud to do so.
Representative Bare, staying with you, how can the state ensure that police departments in Dane County and in Wisconsin are fair and just in how they carry out their duties and do not engage in racial profiling?
Yeah, this is an excellent question, Andrew. And again, a thing I think we need to be deeply ashamed of in Wisconsin. We have the highest disparities in arrests, the highest disproportionate minority confinement. We do, nonsensical things in the justice system, like crimeless revocations and things that other states aren't doing. We have truth in sentencing that doesn't make sense anymore and probably never did. And we have a number of people who are working in, the justice system who aren't committed to equity, who aren't committed to results that we can be proud of. And we're just doing a very poor job at justice in that way. And we just aren't doing justice in a just way. We need to do a much better job of tracking data from law enforcement, tracking data by prosecutors and what judges are doing in their sentences. And not just track that data, but dig into it, find out why, and find out what the disparities really are and who's being most disproportionately affected by them. And we should probably continue to work towards statewide policies on things like squad cams and body cams. And right now we've got this sort of patchwork. And it's probably time to look at whether police and fire commissions are the place where most policy is being made related to law enforcement. That's outside of the elected realm. People who are not elected to those offices, who are not accountable to voters, not accountable to anybody, making these decisions on policy and discipline. So I think that's something we certainly need to look into. And whatever we do as policymakers in law enforcement should also be done in collaboration with law enforcement, make sure that they're part of the solutions too.
Alder Werlein, same question to you.
Thank you. I think implementing cultural competency education that includes understanding of the diverse communities officers serve, promoting respectful and effective communication, because most of it is, it's misinformation. And Wisconsin has many, the worst disparity in terms of policing and incarceration for Black and Brown individuals. Mandating regular implicit bias training for all law enforcement officers to help them recognize and mitigate the unconscious biases that influence their interaction with the public. I have worked closely with Chief Burns, and I was one of the authors or helped the body-worn camera to ensure transparency in police interaction and provide accountability. That footage is very important to view regularly and make available to the public. The other piece is developing and have a clear policy that prohibits racial profiling. So I guess, working at the Just Dane for over 4 years, we can see the criminal justice system is really starts from the racial profiling, so that, we need to prevent that, so we reduce the incarcerations.
Alder, we're going to stay with you for this next question. What is the biggest thing that the state can do to fight climate change? We've, in government been talking a lot about actions that the federal government has taken, new programs, new money. But, what for the state government, the state legislature, do you think can be done that would have the most impact?
Thank you. I think Wisconsin can make significant investment in the renewable energy and infrastructure such as wind, solar, and hydroelectric power, expanding those resources to reduce the reliance of fossil fuels and lower greenhouse gas emissions. If you look at Madison, has historical sustainability initiatives that have helped reduce the carbon footprint and improved significantly the lives of the residents. And providing incentives for businesses, serving at the Sustainability Madison, and also for the last year and a half, we have had some incentives for businesses, for homeowners to adopt clean energy solutions, such as solar panel and energy efficient appliances, tax credit rebates and grants that can make those options more affordable and more attractive. Again, 70, it's great that we have a very progressive Dane County who really care about the climate change and thinking that the climate change is not a hoax, but we have more proactive and preventive measures that can make more sustainable for our environment and for our residents and our businesses. So I'm very, proud to be part of the Sustainability Madison Committee to have mitigate such those challenges.
Representative Bare, same question to you.
Well, we're feeling the effects of climate change every day here with more frequent severe weather and milder winters, hotter summers. This year we had the first tornadoes in the month of February, which is bizarre and unusual, but we need to call it what it is, not bizarre and unusual, an urgent call to action. What we need to do is ensure that everyone can be part of the solution on climate change, which, if you don't have the capital to invest in something like solar panels or an electric car right now, you can't really be part of the solution. And we need to make it accessible for everyone. So I've supported expanding incentives that help us. I support the state's climate action plan and efforts to green our economy and our agricultural practices. I hear from voters all across the state about water problems, and those include contaminated wells and PFAS in our bodies of water. There's the Badger Mill Creek issue right here in Verona that I've spent a lot of time looking into and trying to help with. And I'm a co-sponsor of legislation that helps guarantee access to safe drinking water, a package of bills to address PFAS, along with a package of bills that are directly related to climate change, the Forward on Climate package that Democrats introduced this year. That's one party who's focused on this issue. The Republicans aren't, not one bit. And voters can count on us Democrats to keep working on climate change. It's something I'm passionate about and certainly will continue to work on myself as well.
And Alder, that same question to you. Or no, we started with you already. No,
we started with me.
Yes, we're on. You can tell it's getting towards the end of the debate, and everyone's starting to get a little tired, mainly me. But we're going to move on to the next question and go to Representative Bare. Should the state end its school choice programs in Milwaukee, Racine, and statewide and take those funds and reinvest them in public schools?
Yes, without delay. Those programs should be eliminated immediately, yesterday. They haven't proven to be successful. They're taking resources away from our public schools. As I said, one of the reasons people move to this district are our great public schools. And voters in the Verona area school district, the Middleton Cross Plains school district have been asked to support operating referendums recently, and voters in Madison will be asked this fall to support a very large increase to support schools. Those are three districts that are some of the very best in the state, some of the best schools we've got. And voters can trust me, I think, to keep fighting like hell for our public schools. It's a bedrock of our community. We're sitting on a $3 billion state budget surplus and then asking voters to raise their own taxes for more for this. I mean, it's bonkers. And we have the Republicans to thank for this. Once again, they're doing that to our excellent schools on purpose, trying to privatize them to make profits off of these dollars. And I don't think we should stand for it. So what we need to do is protect the gains that we've made in the last budget, that the governor did with the very creative veto to increase per pupil funding, thanks to mistaken drafting. And we have to expand and invest in universal 3K, 4K, and we should fully fund special education at the state level so that we can have equal chance at learning for those students and much better outcomes, and not spread resources as thin as they are now today.
Alder Wehelie, over to you with that same question.
Thank you. I have been privileged to raise 4 children in the public schools, and I have seen the challenges and the goodness about the public schools. And absolutely, I will agree that we should not invest in choice for that. And the reason why is we have one of the best schools in the nation, but I think Representative Bare said, we have a very much, almost 3 billion surplus, and we need to come together and look into the interest of our young generation and schools. And we should advocate for increased state investment in public schools to reduce reliance on local, property tax and address funding disparities. Implementing more equitable funding formula that considers specific needs for students and districts, it's very important. And I think, the choice schools have no accountability and is privatizing other schools. So I think we should invest in our schools, we should invest in our teachers, and we should invest in our students and make it more conducive and more reliable environment for our students so that they can thrive and be successful for their future.
So this will be our last policy question before we start to wrap up here. But you both have experience in local government, and Alder, we're going to start with you. Are there further changes needed to the shared revenue law passed in the last session, as it relates to state support for local municipalities like the ones that you both have worked with and represented?
I think one of the primary also reason why I'm running is Madison has been really subject of getting less and less shared revenue compared to other municipalities. I think the disproportion and inequity within the shared revenue is really important to look into those formulas and making sure that cities or municipalities that are strong and thriving, especially Madison, who is very economic engine in Wisconsin, should be looked at in terms of how we are giving the shared revenue. We get very little or minimum compared to other municipalities. And one of the key things that I would like to do when I'm elected is to make sure that that formula is revisited and make sure there's equity and fair formula for all cities and municipalities. And by doing that, we are seeing how we can be able to help other cities and municipalities.
And Representative Bare, same question to you.
Well, I'll do a little Cap Times cross promotion for you here, get some clicks that ask readers to take a look at the op-ed that I submitted. Was printed on April 13th, titled "City Budget Woes Are Exactly What Republicans Want." Republicans want to show that Democrats can't govern, and they want mayors and alders to fight with each other and have to go ask voters for more money. The deal that was passed was far more favorable to communities where Republicans live, and that was on purpose. So yes, we need changes. I served on the Verona City Council and Dane County Board. I dug into those budgets. Number one, communities need more resources from the state than what they're getting today. And number two, communities know their priorities. They know where they need to spend. The deal that was passed had far too many strings attached for them to be able to do what they know they need to do at the local level. And history, I think, is also very useful on this topic. The Governor Walker and the Republicans, they implemented levy limits and expenditure limits. And what the result of those were was a strangling of local budgets that led to the situation we saw in Milwaukee and the situation that Madison is in right now, facing a more than $20 million budget deficit. And there are solutions that we could be looking at, like local option sales tax for not just the city of Milwaukee or county of Milwaukee, but also for every other one in the state. That's something I support doing, and I hope that we get to do. And local leaders shouldn't, again, same as schools, shouldn't be having to ask voters to raise their own taxes when we're sitting on a $3 billion state surplus.
So in 1 second, we're going to move into closing statements. But before we do that, I prepared a couple lighter questions. We've been talking through some pretty heavy policy issues, but we found 4 years ago when we did these forums that it was kind of nice for voters to get a sense of who the candidates that you see on the ballot are as people. So to that end, Representative Bare, we're going to start with you. I'm going to go through these, we'll knock them out here. And Representative, what is your favorite restaurant in the 80th Assembly District?
Good question. I come from a foodie family. The changes in the maps make this a little bit sad because there's so many great restaurants in New Glarus and Mount Horeb. So in the new 80th district, I would say Sauzier in Verona for lunch can't be beat, and I would want dinner from Novanta on Old Sauk. I'm a sucker for good wood-fired pizza. I make my own, but not nearly as well as Novanta does.
We really should be charging these places for advertising in our forums. We'll get to that later.
We could go host some fundraisers there to help them out.
Alder, you've been busy, I know, out knocking doors, but when you're not hard at work on the campaign trail, what is your favorite hobby?
I think connecting with friends, and I have to be honest, I haven't had that privilege yet. Looking forward to August 13th. Haven't had the to unwind and look into a way I can be able to enjoy myself. However, 2 weeks ago, one of my good friends invited me to say, today you don't have to talk about politics. You don't have to talk about campaigning. I'm going to treat you for lunch, and we're gonna go see a show. And we end up going to lunch State Street, and then end up going to see a play, which was really rejuvenating and not thinking about the campaign. So that's, I think, my main motivation and my main energy comes from friends and connecting with them and talking to them and, just chatting and sharing the common challenges, but common, success is very important. So I was glad to do that, but I don't very much think of taking a break, just going into doors and meeting the voters, but also sometimes seeing the voters really rejuvenate me, and talking to them and hearing their stories and their challenges, and opening their homes for me and inviting me for coffee, inviting me to their dinner was such a profound experience. You think Wisconsin is, not very welcoming, but I've seen very welcoming, going into Cross Plains, Verona, town of Middleton, very pleasant people. And I'm very grateful to the doors I have knocked so far, and appreciative of them welcoming me and chatting with me, and looking forward to seeing them on the August 13 elections.
There are good people in the 80th Assembly District, and I know that because there are a lot of Cap Times readers in the 80th Assembly District. So, one last quick lightning round here. Representative Bare, who is your biggest role model?
Wow. First one who comes to mind was my first boss, Russ Feingold. I worked for Senator Feingold first 6 years of my career, and learned from his deep devotion to progressive values, which is in line with the Wisconsin tradition and how what my values are as well. He had a absolutely incredible work ethic, just nonstop Energizer Bunny approach to the work. He went to each of Wisconsin's 72 counties every year, and working for him on Capitol Hill, we regularly did 18-hour days. I mean, just relentless pursuit, and something that I model myself off of, along with those commitment to integrity and commitment to constituent services and making sure that people's voices were heard and their issues were addressed promptly. And being part of his team was inspiring. And there was, Rhodes Scholars and really incredible people who worked for him. Due to his values and his work ethic, people wanted to be there. And it was very good conditioning early in my career to be devoted to your values and to work as hard as you possibly can, because people are counting on me.
And Alder, one more question for you. What is the best piece of advice that you have ever received?
Best advice I have ever received. I would say from my mom. My mom is very resilient, very strong mind, and very if she is uneducated, but if she had the education, she could be engineer, she could be politician, she could be a doctor, she could be literally everything. And the reason why I mentioned that is she has inspired me not to be more have a more resilient, but also more problem solver in terms of looking people at the where they are at, but having more empathy, and not everybody is the same, and looking into ways you can be able to look into the problem solving, and having that compassion and care, but also standing up for yourself and not beating yourself and giving up on yourself, but looking into literally she could do anything, and I'm so proud and so grateful to have such a role model that really raised me in a way that's more consistent with her beliefs, but also to care for others. So to be more empathetic and more problem solver and more resilient.
That's a good note to wrap up on, and we will move into closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give their closing remarks, and we'll start with you, Representative.
Well, thank you again, Andrew and Chris and the Cap Times team for hosting this and making sure voters get a chance to hear what we're all about here. I appreciate the opportunity. I know that voters here have been seeing a lot of me, hearing a lot from me, and I appreciate their acceptance and their support. And it's inspiring to hear their stories and hear their burdens and hear their struggles. And I don't for one second take for granted the responsibility and privilege that I have to carry those with me on the work that I'm doing in the state assembly and want to keep doing in the state assembly. The reason I do this is, just deep devotion and commitment to my progressive values, wanting to represent people with integrity, and my commitment to making progress on things. That's the number one thing I care about, is just let's make some progress, let's get some things done. And it's also the top thing that I hear from folks and voters who I'm talking to is, could you please just get something done? Please be functional. It seems like from their point of view, it's not too much to ask of their government. And they're not wrong. That's not too much to ask. Progress is what government should be all about. And I'm deeply committed to that and hope to continue to be able to do this job. I'm excited at the prospect of doing this job after an election where we've got fair maps and Democrats have a chance at getting to a majority. It's a lot of fun to dream about things that we might be able to do. A lot of the things that we talked about this evening, including housing issues and legalizing marijuana and helping working families and guaranteeing access to abortion. Those are all things that are possible, but they're only possible if folks get out and vote, work real hard to elect Democrats, in the fall. And I would please ask the voters of the 80th Assembly District to vote for me, re-elect me to the State Assembly, and visit votebear.com for any more information. And please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. I try to answer everything myself. So happy to be in touch and responsive, and look forward to another exciting 2 years in the Assembly. Thank you.
And Alder Wehelie, you have the last word.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Cap Times. And of course, thank you, the viewers who took the time to listen and tune in. And thank you, Representative Bare, for your perspective and to be part of this conversation. My journey into politics has been driven by my passion for creating positive change and belief in the power of leadership. Throughout my career, I have worked tirelessly to advocate issues that matters to the most of us. I have been guided by the belief that positive change starts in the community level. I have been in Madison for over 34 years, served on many organizations, boards, but also city council for 17 committees and commission. I'm so proud that my campaign we built is very strong. We have more than 50 volunteers, an endorsement from Mayor of Madison, Mayor of Fitchburg, former mayors in Fitchburg, former mayor of Madison, and really proud to have most of the elders at the Madison Common Council supporting me. Thank you to the donors who opened their doors for me and listened to me. Sometimes we disagreed, but then at the end of the day, we left with a hug. The things I hear the most is from the door is we need to be heard and we need to be represented. We need someone who will not take no for an answer, and that's me. I'll not take no for an answer, and I will bring equity and justice for all. I can't wait to represent you in the State Assembly, but I need your help and I need your support by voting August 13th or before in absentee ballot. If you want to learn more about my campaign, nasra4wi.com. My phone number's in there. I'm happy to hear from you. I just want to say that both of us are, strong progressive Democrats, but one has the lived experience in terms of community connections and community outcome and impact. And I hope to earn your trust in August 13th. Thank you.
Representative Mike Bare and Madison Alder Nasra Wehelie are the Democratic candidates in the primary race for the 80th Assembly District. I'd like to thank both of them for joining us here tonight for our forum, and we would like to thank all of you all for tuning in. Go vote on August 13th and go to captimes.com for more information this election season. Thanks, everyone, and have a great night.